My name is Helen Mitchell, and I'm 68 years old. What I'm about to tell you will haunt me until my dying breath. The day my daughter Rebecca was arrested for the murder of my husband Thomas was the day I realized I had been living with a monster for 43 years. It started with a phone call that shattered my world into a million pieces. Mrs. Mitchell, this is Detective Brennan from the Homicide Division. I need you to come to the station immediately. It's about your husband's death. My hands trembled as I held the phone. Thomas had died 3 months ago. A heart attack in his sleep, the doctor said. Peaceful, natural. At 72 years old, these things happen. We had mourned him, buried him, and I was slowly learning to live alone after 46 years of marriage. What about his death? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Ma'am, we've received new information that suggests your husband's death may not have been natural. Please come to the station as soon as possible. And Mrs. Mitchell, please come alone. The drive to the police station felt like descending into a nightmare. Detective Brennan met me at the door, her expression grave. She led me to a small interrogation room that smelled of stale coffee and fear. Mrs. Mitchell, she began, sitting across from me. 3 days ago, we received an anonymous tip that your husband was murdered. The tipster provided specific details about how it was done and who did it. I felt the blood drain from my face. Murdered? That's impossible. Thomas died of a heart attack. The autopsy report confirmed it. The detective opened a folder and slid several documents across the table. We exhumed your husband's body yesterday. We had the remains tested by a different medical examiner. Mrs. Mitchell, your husband died from digoxin poisoning. Digoxin, the word hung in the air like a death sentence. It's a heart medication, she explained. In the right doses, it helps people with heart conditions. In high doses, it causes cardiac arrest that looks exactly like a natural heart attack. Your husband had lethal levels in his system. But who? Why? The questions tumbled from my lips. Detective Brennan's eyes softened with something like pity. Mrs. Mitchell, the anonymous tip came from someone who claims to have direct knowledge of the crime. They provided details that only someone involved could know. According to this person, your daughter Rebecca poisoned your husband over a period of 6 weeks. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the table to keep from falling. Rebecca? My daughter Rebecca? That's insane. Why would anyone say such a horrible thing? The detective slid another document toward me. This is a copy of your husband's updated will filed 6 months before his death. According to this will, Rebecca inherits nothing. Everything goes to you, and upon your death, it goes to various charities. The previous will left everything to Rebecca. I stared at the document. It was true. Thomas and I had updated our wills together last year after Rebecca had asked us for money for the 5th time in 2 years. She was 43 years old, successful on the surface, but always needing just a little more. Thomas had finally said enough was enough. Mrs. Mitchell, the detective continued, we need to ask you some questions about the months leading up to your husband's death. Did Rebecca visit often? Yes, I said slowly. She came by every week, sometimes twice a week. She said she wanted to spend more time with us while we were still healthy. And did she prepare food or drinks for your husband? The memory hit me like a sledgehammer. Rebecca had started making Thomas's morning coffee. She insisted on it, said it was her way of showing love. Every morning for the last 6 weeks of his life, Rebecca had made his coffee. Oh, God, I whispered. She made his coffee every single morning. Over the next 3 hours, Detective Brennan walked me through a timeline that destroyed everything I thought I knew about my daughter. 6 months ago, Thomas had told Rebecca about the new will. She had been furious, screaming that we were ungrateful after everything she had done for us. 2 weeks later, she showed up at our door with apologies and tears, begging forgiveness. She started visiting more often, being the perfect daughter, and insisting on making Thomas his morning coffee as a gesture of reconciliation. The anonymous tipster, Detective Brennan explained, claims that Rebecca purchased digoxin from an online pharmacy using a fake prescription. She crushed the pills and added them to Thomas's coffee every morning. The dose was calculated to build up slowly in his system, making the eventual heart attack look completely natural. "Who is this tipster?" I demanded. "How do they know all this?" The detective hesitated. "It's someone close to Rebecca, someone who was there when she planned it, someone who can no longer live with the guilt." That afternoon, they arrested Rebecca at her office. I wasn't there, but I saw the footage later on the news. My daughter, in her expensive suit and designer heels, being led out in handcuffs while her coworkers watched in shock. Her face showed no emotion, no fear, no shame, just a cold blankness that I had never seen before. That was 3 days ago. Now I sit in my living room, the room where Thomas and I raised Rebecca, where we celebrated her birthdays and graduations, where we dreamed of grandchildren that never came, and I'm trying to understand how I missed the signs that my daughter was a murderer. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand how we got here, I need to tell you about Rebecca from the beginning, about the daughter I thought I knew and the woman she actually became. I met Thomas when I was 22 years old. I was working as a secretary at a law firm in Riverside, trying to save money for college. Thomas was a junior associate, handsome and ambitious, with a smile that made my heart skip. We married 2 years later in a small ceremony at the courthouse, with dreams bigger than our wallets. Money was tight in those early years. Thomas worked long hours building his career, while I worked part-time and went to night school. We lived in a tiny one-bedroom apartment with paper-thin walls and a bathroom so small you had to step into the shower to close the door. But we were happy. We had love and we had hope, and that felt like enough. Rebecca was born when I was 24. The pregnancy was difficult, 3 months of bed rest, but the moment I held her, every hardship melted away. She was perfect. 10 tiny fingers, 10 tiny toes, and the most beautiful brown eyes I had ever seen. Thomas wept when he held her for the first time. "Our little miracle," he whispered. I stayed home to raise her while Thomas continued climbing the legal ladder. We moved to a bigger apartment, then to a small house in the suburbs. Money was still tight, but we were making it work. Rebecca wanted for nothing. We sacrificed our own needs to give her ballet lessons, piano lessons, the best education we could afford. She was a bright child, quick to learn and eager to please. Her teachers loved her. She made friends easily. She brought home perfect report cards and hand-drawn pictures that I hung on every wall. "This is my family," she would say, pointing to her crayon drawings. "Mommy, Daddy, and me."